The Breaking Point Commander Elena Torres stepped through the airlock of Haven's rest station, her boots clicking against the metal deck plating. The diplomatic bag in her hand contained humanity's final peace offering to the Vorthic Empire. She had spent 3 sleepless nights crafting the proposal with Earth's best negotiators. Trade concessions, territorial agreements, even shared technology. Everything the Vorthic had demanded over the past 2 years of increasingly hostile negotiations. Station's main corridor stretched before her, lined with beings from dozens of species. Haven's Rest was neutral territory, built specifically for diplomatic meetings between the various powers of the galaxy. Elena had been here 7 times before, always hoping for peace, always leaving with nothing but empty promises and new threats. Today felt different. The very air seemed to carry an electric tension that made her skin crawl. Other delegates moved through the corridors with quick, nervous steps. Even the Zephyrians, usually so composed and aloof, seemed agitated. Their crystalline forms flickered with rapid color changes that Elena had learned meant anxiety. She reached the main conference chamber and paused at the massive doors. Through the transparent aluminum, she could see the Vorthic delegation already, seated at the central table. High Warlord Krex dominated the space even while sitting. His species stood nearly 9 feet tall, with scaled hide that shifted from deep green to black, depending on their mood. Razor-sharp teeth filled his elongated jaw, and his eyes glowed with an inner fire that spoke of predatory intelligence. Elena had studied the Vorthic extensively. They were an ancient species, one of the first to achieve interstellar travel. For over 10,000 years, they had expanded their empire through conquest and subjugation. Dozens of species had fallen before. Their military might. The Vorthic believed in one simple philosophy. The strong ruled, the weak served or died. The doors opened with a soft hiss, and Elena entered the chamber. Her human delegation was small compared to the others. Just herself, 2 military advisors, and a cultural attaché. The Vorthic had brought 20 representatives, each more intimidating than the last. Their armor gleamed with technological enhancements, and their weapons were visible despite this being a diplomatic meeting. Commander Torres, Krex's voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. How gracious of the humans to finally send someone with actual authority. Elena took her seat across from the Vorthic leader. She placed the diplomatic bag on the table and looked directly into Krex's burning eyes. High Warlord, I come with full authority from the United Earth government to negotiate a lasting peace between our peoples. Krex's laugh was like breaking glass. Peace? You misunderstand, little human. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to accept your surrender. Elena felt her heart rate spike, but she kept her expression neutral. I'm afraid I don't understand. Our communications indicated this was a peace negotiation. Your communications were incorrect. Krex leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the table. The Vorthic Empire has decided that humanity has been allowed to exist independently for long enough. Your species will submit to our rule, or you will be eliminated. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. Around the chamber, other delegates shifted uncomfortably. This was not how diplomatic meetings were supposed to proceed. The Altarian ambassador, a tall being with flowing robes, spoke up in his melodic voice. High Warlord, surely there must be some room for negotiation. Humanity has been a productive member of the galactic community for over 50 years. Krex's head snapped toward the Altarian. Productive? These mammals have done nothing but breed and consume resources. They spread across the galaxy like a plague, establishing colonies on worlds that could serve the Empire better. They are weak, soft creatures who hide behind their technology and their words. Elena's hands clenched under the table. She had spent years listening to similar insults, always maintaining diplomatic composure. But something about Krex's tone, his casual dismissal of her entire species, made her blood boil. High Warlord, with respect, humanity has never taken a world that belonged to another species. We have followed all galactic colonization laws. We have contributed to galactic science, art, and culture. We have been peaceful neighbors to all species. Peaceful, Krex spat. Yes, you have been peaceful. Do you know what that tells me about your species? It tells me you are prey animals pretending to be predators. You speak of peace because you are too weak to fight. You follow laws because you are too cowardly to break them. Elena's military advisor, Colonel Jackson, started to stand, but she placed a hand on his arm. High Warlord, if you truly believe humanity is weak, then why do you seek our submission? Why not simply ignore us? Krex's eyes flared brighter. Because your weakness is contagious. Other species see you being treated as equals and begin to think they deserve the same respect. The Menturi have stopped paying tribute to the Empire. The Vaelians have closed their borders to our ships. Your very existence undermines the natural order. Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. This wasn't about territory or resources. This was about dominance. The Vorthik saw humanity's peaceful nature as a threat to their entire worldview. What exactly are you demanding? She asked quietly. Krex leaned back in his chair, confident in his position. Complete surrender. All human colonies will be placed under Vorthik administration. Your military will be dissolved. Your people will serve. The Empire has laborers and technicians. Your breeding will be controlled to prevent overpopulation. You will live, but you will live as subjects. Elena stared at him for a long moment. And if we refuse, then you will die. Every human world will be cleansed. Every human ship will be destroyed. Your species will become nothing more than a cautionary tale about the price of defying the Empire. The chamber fell completely silent. Elena could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. She thought of Earth, of the billions of people, going about their daily lives, unaware that their entire future hung in the balance of this conversation. She thought of the colony ships heading to distant stars, filled with families seeking new lives. She thought of the children playing in parks on New Geneva, laughing and dreaming of futures that might never come. I need to consult with my government, Elena said finally. Krex's laugh was triumphant. Of course you do. The weak always need to hide behind committees and votes. You have 24 hours to give me your answer. Elena stood, her legs feeling unsteady. She gathered her diplomatic bag and turned to leave. At the door, she paused and looked back at Krex. High Warlord, may I ask you something? Speak. Asterisk. In your 10,000 years of conquest, have you ever encountered a species that chose to fight rather than submit? Krex's eyes narrowed. Many have tried. None have succeeded. Why do you ask? Elena's expression remained carefully neutral. Curiosity. You see, High Warlord, in all your studying of humanity, you've made one critical error. You've assumed that because we choose peace, we are incapable of war. You've mistaken our restraint for weakness. Krex's scales shifted to a darker shade of green. Are you threatening me, little human? Not threatening, clarifying. You want to know why humanity has been so peaceful for the past 50 years? It's because we learned something terrible about ourselves. We learned what we become when we stop holding back. Alana's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but in the silent chamber, every word carried clearly. We are not weak, High Warlord. We are not prey animals. We are the apex predators of our homeworld. We are the species that hunted megafauna to extinction with nothing but sharpened sticks. We are the children of beings who looked at the vast, hostile ocean and decided to cross it anyway. We are the descendants of creatures who saw the sky and decided to claim it. She paused, letting her words sink in. We choose peace because we remember what we were before we learned to be civilized. We follow laws because we know what happens when we don't. We show mercy because we understand the alternative. Krex was no longer laughing. His scales had shifted to pure black, and his eyes blazed with barely contained fury. "You dare. Asterisk, I dare nothing," Elena interrupted. "I simply want you to understand what you're asking for. You want to see what humanity looks like when we stop pretending to be civilized? When we stop following galactic law? When we stop showing mercy to our enemies?" She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every delegate present. "Then, by all means, High Warlord, give us your answer. Attack our colonies. Threaten our children. Show us that there is no place in this galaxy for peace." Elena turned and walked toward the door. As she reached it, she spoke one final time without looking back. "But understand this clearly. If you force us to fight, we will not fight like other species. We will not seek victory and then offer terms. We will not show mercy to the defeated. We will not stop until every trace of your empire is erased from the galaxy. Not conquest, High Warlord. Extinction." The door closed behind her with a soft hiss, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Asterisk. Elena had made it halfway to her ship when her communicator chimed with an emergency signal. She answered with shaking hands. "Commander Torres here. Elena, it's Admiral Harrison. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but we've just received word from the Vanguard sector. New Geneva colony, ... It's gone." Elena felt the world tilt around her. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" "Orbital bombardment. The Vorthik hit them 3 hours ago. 2 million civilians, Elena. Men, women, children. They're all dead." The communicator slipped from Elena's nerveless fingers. 2 million people. The colony she had visited just last month. The schools, the hospitals, the parks where children played. All of it reduced to molten glass and radioactive ash. When she finally found her voice, it was barely recognizable. "Admiral, please relay the following message to Earth Command. Diplomatic. Solutions are no longer viable. Humanity is officially at war with the Vorthik Empire." She paused, thinking of Krex's arrogant laughter, of his casual dismissal of human life. "And Admiral? Tell them Elena Torres said it's time to stop pretending. We're civilized." As her ship departed Haven's Rest, Elena stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vorthik Empire was celebrating their easy victory over a human colony. They thought they had proven human weakness. They had no idea what they had just awakened. Asterisk. The awakening 6 months had passed since New Geneva burned. The galaxy had watched with mixed emotions as humanity mourned their dead and then ... disappeared. Human ships vanished from trade routes. Human colonies went silent. Human representatives stopped attending Galactic Council meetings. Even the most advanced surveillance networks couldn't penetrate the veil of secrecy that had fallen over human space. Dr. Sarah Kim stood in the center of her research facility, surrounded by holographic displays showing data that would have horrified her just 7 months ago. The laboratory had once been dedicated to peaceful xenobiology research. Now it served a very different purpose. "Status report," she called out to her team. "Project Prometheus is ready for field testing," came the reply from her lead engineer. "Neural disruption frequency has been calibrated for Vorthik brain patterns." Project Nemesis? Nanoscale deployment successful. We can now target specific genetic markers with 99% accuracy. Sarah nodded grimly. Before the war, she had been studying alien biology to find ways to help different species coexist. Now she was finding ways to make them extinct. The transformation still bothered her sometimes, late at night when she couldn't sleep. But then she would remember the images from New Geneva. The children's playground turned to glass. The hospital where she had once volunteered reduced to radioactive craters. Dr. Kim, her assistant, called from across the room. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Harrison." Sarah accepted the call, and the Admiral's weathered face appeared on her display. "Sarah, how are we looking?" "Better than expected, Admiral. The Vorthic's arrogance is working in our favor. They've made no attempt to adapt their defenses because they don't believe we're capable of threatening them." Harrison's smile was cold as winter on Mars. "Perfect. Operation Tabula Rasa begins in 72 hours. Are your teams ready?" "More than ready, sir. We've been waiting for this." Meanwhile, in the Kepler sector, Captain Marcus Reed stood on the bridge of the U.E.'s Retribution, watching his tactical display with satisfaction. His ship looked nothing like the exploration vessels humanity had once used to peacefully explore the galaxy. Gone were the elegant curves and gleaming white hulls. The Retribution was angular, predatory, coated in a black material that absorbed sensor scans and radiated menace. "Captain," his weapons officer reported, "stealth fleet is in position. 47 ships, all running dark." Marcus nodded. "And the Vorthic patrol?" 17 ships, sir. Heavy cruisers and destroyers. They're maintaining standard formation. No signs of increased alertness." Marcus studied the enemy formation. The Vorthic had been growing increasingly confident over the past months. Without human resistance, they had begun expanding more aggressively. 3 more species had submitted to their rule rather than face the fate of New Geneva. The galaxy was learning to fear the Vorthic Empire again. They had no idea that they should be fearing something else entirely. "All ships, prepare for synchronized strike. Remember, we want survivors. Can't interrogate the dead." The human fleet moved like ghosts through space. New propulsion systems eliminated energy signatures. Experimental hull coatings bent light and sensor waves around the ships. Humanity had taken every peaceful technology they had developed and weaponized it beyond recognition. The first Vorthic ship died without ever knowing it was under attack. Focused antimatter beams punched through its shields and hull, vaporizing the command deck in microseconds. The second ship had time to begin an alarm before neural disruptor fields scrambled the crew's brains, leaving them helpless as boarding pods attached to their hull dot. Within minutes, the entire Vorthic patrol was either destroyed or captured. The survivors would provide valuable intelligence about Vorthic military deployments. They would also carry a message back to their empire. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Vorthic supply lines were severed. Communication networks were infiltrated and corrupted. Entire fleets found themselves stranded in empty space as their navigation systems were hacked, and reprogrammed High Warlord Krex stood in his command center on the Imperial homeworld, staring at damage reports with growing disbelief. In the past 72 hours, his empire had lost over 200 ships and dozens of strategic installations. His military commanders stood around him in stunned silence, their scales showing a pale green of fear. "How?" Krex's voice was barely controlled rage. "How are these prey animals doing this to us?" General Fox, his chief military advisor, stepped forward reluctantly. "High Warlord, our intelligence suggests that the humans have developed technologies we've never encountered. Their ships are nearly invisible to our sensors. Their weapons operate on principles our scientists don't understand." "Impossible," Krex snarled. "They are primitives. They have existed in space for less than 2 centuries. "Perhaps," Fox said carefully, "we underestimated their capabilities." Before Krex could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the command center. The main display lit up with incoming transmission markers, hundreds of them, coming from every corner of the Empire simultaneously. "What is this?" Krex demanded. "Unknown, sir." The transmissions are being broadcast on all frequencies, overriding our security protocols. The display flickered, and suddenly Commander Elena Torres appeared before them. But this was not the diplomatic Elena who had pleaded for peace 6 months ago. This woman wore the uniform of humanity's military elite. Her eyes held no warmth, no mercy, no trace of the person who had once hoped for galactic harmony. High Warlord Krex. Elena's voice was calm, almost conversational. I hope you've been enjoying the past few days. Consider them a demonstration of what we meant when we warned you about underestimating humanity. Krex's claws extended involuntarily. Around the command center, his staff watched in fascination and terror as the human continued. You see, High Warlord, we've spent the last 6 months doing what humans do best, adapting. We studied your military tactics, your technology, your biology. We learned everything there is to know about your species. And then we designed the perfect weapons to exploit every weakness we found. Elena paused, and for a moment, something, almost like sadness, crossed her features. You could have chosen peace. We offered you trade, cooperation, mutual prosperity. Instead, you chose to murder 2 million innocent people to prove a point about strength. The display shifted to show tactical readouts from across the Vorthic Empire. Every major military installation was highlighted in red. Every fleet position was marked. Every defensive structure was catalogued. This is what your empire looks like to us now, High Warlord. Not an unstoppable force, but a collection of targets. We know where every ship is stationed. We know where every weapon is stored. We know where every member of your species lives. General Thox, his chief military advisor, stepped forward reluctantly. High Warlord, our intelligence suggests that the humans have developed technologies we've never encountered. Their ships are nearly invisible to our sensors. Their weapons operate on principles our scientists don't understand. Impossible, Krex snarled. They are primitives. They have existed in space for less than 2 centuries. Perhaps, Thox said carefully, we underestimated their capabilities. Before Krex could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the command center. The main display lit up with incoming transmission markers, hundreds of them coming from every corner of the Empire simultaneously. What is this? Krex demanded. Unknown, sir. The transmissions are being broadcast on all frequencies, overriding our security protocols. The display flickered, and suddenly Commander Elena Torres appeared before them. But this was not the diplomatic Elena who had pleaded for peace 6 months ago. This woman wore the uniform of humanity's military elite. Her eyes held no warmth, no mercy, no trace of the person who had once hoped for galactic harmony. High Warlord Krex. Elena's voice was calm, almost conversational. I hope you've been enjoying the past few days. Consider them a demonstration of what we meant when we warned you about underestimating humanity. Krex's claws extended involuntarily. Around the command center, his staff watched in fascination and terror as the human continued. You see, High Warlord, we've spent the last 6 months doing what humans do best, adapting. We studied your military tactics, your technology, your biology. We learned everything there is to know about your species. And then we designed the perfect weapons to exploit every weakness we found. Elena paused, and for a moment, something, almost like sadness, crossed her features. You could have chosen peace. We offered you trade, cooperation, mutual prosperity. Instead, you chose to murder 2 million innocent people to prove a point about strength. The display shifted to show tactical readouts from across the Vorthic Empire. Every major military installation was highlighted in red. Every fleet position was marked. Every defensive structure was catalogued. This is what your empire looks like to us now, High Warlord. Not an unstoppable force, but a collection of targets. We know where every ship is stationed. We know where every weapon is stored. We know where every member of your species lives. Krex felt something he had not experienced in decades, genuine fear. What do you want, human? Elena's smile was colder than the vacuum of space. What do we want? We want you to understand the difference between mercy and weakness. We want you to comprehend what you've awakened. The display shifted again, showing images of human colonies being evacuated, of entire populations being relocated to fortress worlds. We are not evacuating our people because we fear you, High Warlord. We are evacuating them so they won't have to see what we're about to become. Elena leaned forward, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of humanity's collective. Rage. You wanted to see us fight. You wanted to test our strength. Very well. But understand this, we will not fight for territory. We will not fight for resources. We will not fight for dominance. She paused, and in that moment, Krex saw something in her eyes that made his blood freeze. It was the look of a predator that had finally decided to stop playing with its prey. We fight for extinction, High Warlord. Yours. The transmission cut to black, leaving the Vorthic command center in stunned silence. 3 hours later, the first human dreadnought emerged from hyperspace above the Vorthic homeworld. It was followed by another, then another. Within minutes, hundreds of human warships surrounded the planet, their weapons trained on the surface, but they did not fire. Instead, they waited dot across the galaxy. Similar fleets appeared of every major Vorthic world. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer interested in fighting individual battles. They were ready to end the war in a single, coordinated strike. The galactic community watched in horrified fascination as the most peaceful species they knew prepared to commit the largest act of genocide in recorded history. Species that had once dismissed humans as weak prey animals now whispered fearfully about what would happen if humanity ever turned its attention to them. On Earth, Elena Torres stood in the war room, her hand hovering over the command console that would give the order to fire. Around her, the military leadership of humanity waited for her decision. They had spent months preparing for this moment, the complete eradication of an entire species. Ma'am, her communications officer spoke quietly. We're receiving surrender offers from 17 Vorthic worlds. They're offering complete capitulation. Elena stared at the display showing the positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. With a single command, she could end the Vorthic Empire forever. She could ensure that no species would ever again mistake human mercy for weakness. But then she thought of the children who had once played in the parks of New Geneva. Would they want their deaths avenged through genocide? Or would they want something better to rise from the ashes of their loss? Open a channel to all Vorthic worlds, Elena said finally. When the connection was established, she spoke with quiet authority. High Warlord Krex and all leaders of the Vorthic Empire, you have 1 hour to order the complete surrender of all military forces. You will dismantle your weapons of mass destruction. You will release all subjugated species. You will submit to a period of supervised rehabilitation under galactic authority. She paused, letting the terms sink in. If you comply, your species will survive. Your worlds will be spared. Your people will have the chance to learn what it means to be civilized members of the galactic community. Elena's voice hardened. If you refuse, or if any Vorthic ship fires on human forces, we will demonstrate why our species spent so many years trying to contain its own nature. The choice is yours, High Warlord, evolution or extinction. The hour that followed was the longest in galactic history. Species across the galaxy held their breath, waiting to see whether humanity would choose mercy or vengeance. When High Warlord Krex's surrender came through, It arrived as a broken transmission from a warrior who had finally understood the difference between strength and power. Humanity had won not just a war, but something far more valuable, the knowledge that they could unleash their full potential and still choose to remain civilized. The galaxy would never forget the lesson. Neither would humanity itself. Asterisk.